So the international break for Trinidad and Tobago has ended. Of course, we played our 2 matches against Bermuda and Curacao. And I just thought that I would do a little recap and give some positives and negatives that I think came out of this international break. So let's start off with the positives. So of course, the first positive is we went unbeaten in the 2 games. We beat Bermuda 3-0 convincingly. Maybe we should have scored more goals, but we did get the victory. It was away from home. And you can never really coast on a victory. The performance was good. It was convincing, and we got that victory. Second game, of course, we knew that we needed to win both games to really be in a favorable position to qualify. But we did draw against Curacao. Now, if we had beaten Curacao at home and maybe gotten a result against Jamaica, or even just beaten Curacao and still lost to Jamaica in the first round of games, you would say a draw away to Curacao was actually a good result, a decent result. People might say that, we should have won. I was definitely of the opinion that we should have won. But nevertheless, we went unbeaten in these 2 games, which is something that is commendable. Another positive that I think we should give credit for is Dwight York. I think he has been experimenting with a lot of players. There are still some guys that are out there that people like the fans, people in Trinidad and Tobago are saying should be in the squad. But credit to Dwight York, he has brought in some new players. He like of Jaron Jackie, Mulikan was coming in highly rated, had a great performance against Curacao, as well as Darren Payne. So we are seeing Dwight York, trying to incorporate new players, trying to see what players are available, and we do have to give him some credit for that. Another positive, which I think kind of ties into this one, is the fact that Dwight York is trying to change up things a little bit in terms of the formation that we saw against Curacao. Against Bermuda, we saw something. Against Curacao, we saw the 3 in the back. And then in the second half, which is when he normally changes up things and we normally play better, we do see him bringing on Darren Payne and moving up Rio into that right wing back position, which is his preferred thing. So we are seeing Dwight trying to experiment with different tactics, as I said, bringing in those new players and getting in the mindset of adapting during games. So that's something that I think, and this is not to say that he's doing it perfectly. Obviously he's not doing it perfectly because we aren't getting all the results that we want. But we are seeing him trying to change up things, trying to bring in new faces, not always depending on the reliables. Like we saw Daniel Phillips getting benched, and he's been one of our best players, in the past year, basically. So I think that's a positive. That's always good to see your manager or your coach trying to, bring in new players, change your faces, adapt based on the games. So I think that's definitely a positive. Another positive, and this is a player. I have 2 players that are positives that I think for this particular international break. One, Tyrese Spicer. Have to give him his credit. We've been seeing him in great form for Orlando in the MLS. We've been seeing clips of him scoring goals, celebrating, and we always wanted that to reflect into the national team. And I think this was his best international window he has had with us. When he first came in, he looked really good. That performance against Cuba in the Ato Buldan Stadium. But I think since then, if I'm being honest, I think he has been underperforming because we know the quality that he has, and he hasn't really been producing in terms of end product goals and assists. He's had glimpses, but never really dominated games. And I think this round, 2 goals in 2 games, 2 good goals as well taken. And apart from that, I think he just looked a bit more threatening. I think there's things that he still needs to work on. I think he's still not too good in tight spaces. He could get closed down very easily. We know he likes to run into space. That aside, I think Tyrese Spicer had a really good international break. So credit to Spicer. Another player who I think had a really good international break, and this may seem contradictory because he made that mistake that cost us against Curacao, but I have to give it to Rio Card. Now, Rio plays at a very high level in Crystal Palace. We know that, but that is not... that doesn't mean that he's a good player. That doesn't mean anything, but just because he played for Crystal Palace, right? But what Rio has done since coming into this team, I think he's growing. His performances are getting better. I think he's getting more composed And we are seeing how deadly he is on set pieces, and crossing his delivery is probably the best in the team. And that's why he stands over all of our set pieces against Curacao. All set pieces except probably one were on the mark. And, we look threatening. And if that is something that we could turn into a weapon in these two upcoming games, and even going forward in the future, because I think Rio loves Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, he's singing the national anthem. He's not born here. He didn't grow up here. Singing the national anthem, make his city pride. When he was in Hasty Crawford, you saw him riling up the crowd. He's involved with the influencers. He's involved with Scully doing interviews. They like it. He loves it. And you could see that reflected in his game. You could see that he gives it his all, barring that mistake. Again, unacceptable. But nevertheless, I think despite that, you really have to give it to him. And especially when he moves into that right wing back position, he's a really good player. And if he decides to, I think he actually, now that he's played so many games for us, I think he has to commit to Trinidad and Tobago, which is good. We have a player on our hands and somebody who could potentially lead this country to great things. We having this amount of experience in the squad at such a young age is a plus for him. And I really, really hope that he stays on, because he's a top player. He's a top player. I think he's definitely one of the positives coming out of that. There probably are many more, but one more positive that I want to touch on before we go into the negatives is the defense. And by the defense, I mean Trimmingham and Kobe Henry. I think since Kobe Henry has come into the squad, he has been good, really good. A bit shaky game against Jamaica, but you have to get that from centre-backs at some point in time. But especially this break, really and truly, that defense was really good. No mistakes. Well, from the centre-backs, that is. Really, against Bermuda, they were solid. They seem to communicate well. Sometimes they don't communicate so well, it must be said. But more often than not, they seem to be developing a solid centre-back pairing. And it's refreshing to see, because during the Gold Cup and earlier on in the year and on the road to the World Cup, we were seeing a lot of defensive errors which were causing the team. And, it's something that we are speaking about a lot. And since Toby has come in, really, and Trimmingham, we haven't really been talking about defensive errors, being honest, apart from the mistake from Rio at Curacao. But other than that, it's been pretty solid. So those are just some of the positives that I think. I would mention Malik Khan, but I don't want to go too much into it because he didn't play much. But because I mentioned that Dwight was experimenting, I think that kind of covered him in terms of how I think he is a positive as well. So let's go into the negatives. So just a few. One negative, we are still a second half team, right? Now, against Bermuda, we had a really good first half, which is understood, which is expected. We were supposed to have a good whole game against them, which we did. But I still think that we are reactive. I still think that we perform better in the second half. We saw that against Curacao. Though we had a decent first half in terms of the footballing sense, it wasn't convincing and threatening. And I think that we need to be more reactive. We need to hit the ground running. We need to score early goals, kill off teams early, and not leave it to the second half to fix things. Right? And I think that we're still in that kind of stage where we're a second half team. And that's never a good thing. Another negative, I still think we're not getting the best out of our best player, which is Levi Garcia. Now, as I said in the video before, Levi is our best player, in my opinion, right? People may think otherwise, but I think in terms of level and ability, he's our best player. And if you aren't getting the best out of your best player, something is wrong. You see it in teams all over the world. When you have a big player who could win your games when everything is catered around them, you give those conditions in order for them to thrive. And I think he needs to go out on a wing where we know he's most effective. Even his glimpses in the last game really will, or even throughout, maybe when he comes off of that right-hand side, where he's able to take on players, dribble, win fouls, that is where Levi Garcia is most effective. And I think that needs to be attended to in order for us to get the best out of our best player. And if you get a Levi Garcia who is ripping and in form, we will see certain results. Trust and believe that. Another negative that I think has been something for a while, not just this window, is the subs. I think our impact subs aren't the best. Now, Molino came on as a sub against Curacao, which was really good, came on and changed the game. But we're talking more the likes of Rio Card, Lantania James. We are not seeing enough of these guys. And even when they do come on, it's almost too late. Right? We saw Natty come on against Curacao, and he didn't get much time to really impact the game. And we know what he could do when it is he comes onto our pitch. Real Gil, we haven't even seen him. And he's also ripping form for his club, and we know that he's a talented guy. We've seen him come on, even under Dwight, and change games. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed expeditiously, because these are talented young players. You know, you gave Rio the chance. We need to give Natty and Gil and these guys, you know, that chance as well. And I think that's a negative, because I don't think we're maximizing the players that we have. And even when those subs do come on, it's almost too little, too late. That's all I can think of right now. Oh, finally, how could I forget? The ultimate thing that I think is a negative for this team, or a negative that came out of that international break, is we do not capitalize on our chances. And it hurts us, because against Bermuda, we won, but we could have won much more. This group could very well come down to goal difference, and goals are so important. And it's unfortunate that we didn't score more against them. We had opportunities, we didn't take them. Against Curacao now, we see how it could become even worse, where not taking our chances actually cost us 2 points. So we drew, yeah, we didn't lose, but we surely could have won. And I think that we need to take our chances. We need to be more composed in front of goal. And we can't be thrown away. We can't be thrown away, because at this stage, there's so much on the line. It reached a point where I think we could finish first, but it's more likely second is the best result for us. But I just think that we need to be taking our chances. So, as I said, those are some just positives and negatives that I picked up on from this international break and even before. And, you know, let me know in the comments if you agree. Let me know if you have any other ones that you want to add on. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And thank you for your support.